Dana. As Erin was saying, I'm a second year MPH student at the School of Global Public Health, and I'm on the public health nutrition track. So I'm mainly focusing on areas like food accessibility and availability. I'm from right outside New York City, but I moved to Manhattan this past year. And I studied at Tulane University in New Orleans for 4 years. And I got my degree in public health, but that one was a little more general. So now I'm really honing in on the nutrition side. And while I was working there, I interned at an organization within the health department called Fit NOLA. And I worked with the community in different areas of nutrition and fitness. And that really showed me which path I wanted to go on. And I'm also taking courses through Steinhardt at NYU in order to become a registered dietitian. And I have 2 more years of coursework and 1 year of an internship before that happens. And then I will share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. I'll put it in presenter view. I can find the button. So today we'll be making zucchini boats, and you can fill it with chickpea couscous is the main filling, but you can also edit it to anything that you want. And the cookbook is called the Meat Lovers Meatless Cookbook, Vegetarian Recipes that Carnivores Will Devour. And so I chose this cookbook because personally, I don't eat red meat. I eat other poultry and proteins, but I prefer not to eat red meat. So I decided I should choose something that is a cookbook that I would make from myself. And both of my roommates are carnivores. So when we cook meals together, we have to find something that we all like. And I've flipped through this book in the past, and they have some really great recipes. They're also really adaptable to anything that is wanted if you have allergies or anything like that. There's also a really big increasing trend towards plant-based lifestyles and reducing meat intake, whether for environmental reasons or health reasons. And this was especially popular during everyone's quarantine last year with more people home cooking. So I thought it would be interesting as we go along in the future to see if that trend continues. Before we get into the recipe, I just wanted to get a little more sciencey and do a quick lesson on making a well-rounded vegetarian dish. I know that a lot of people have a misconception that you aren't going to get enough protein when you're eating only vegetarian foods, but that's not necessarily the case. So proteins are made up of essential amino acids, and a complete protein is something that contains all of these, and it's something such as a meat, fish, eggs, dairy, quinoa, buckwheat, and soybean are some of the vegetarian versions of complete proteins. But what this means is that your body can't make the essential amino acids and you need to eat them in your diet. So since there aren't many vegetarian options that are complete proteins, that's where that myth kind of originated. So on the other hand, an incomplete protein does not have all of the essential amino acids, and this could be legumes or nuts, whole grains. And while they don't contain all of the essential amino acids, each one contains different parts of the protein. So you still can get everything you need, as we'll see on the next slide. It's called a complement protein. So these foods with different amino acids can be combined and you'll be able to meet all of your needs. These don't have to be eaten at the same time. You could have something for breakfast that has peanut butter on it, and then for lunch you could have an English muffin, and together those will create a complement protein. So a lot of the popular ones are nuts and seeds with whole grains. My favorite is peanut butter on whole wheat toast. You could have whole grains with beans, living in the South, you saw a lot of really popular dish is rice and beans. And so that's a complement protein. You could have whole wheat crackers with hummus. And then one that gets really creative is a salad with any vegetables, legumes, or seeds. You could kind of have endless options there because you could decide what vegetables you want on it, different seeds. You could have pumpkin, sunflower, and different beans, as we'll see in our recipe tonight. So as the fall just started, one of the other reasons I chose this cookbook is because we're constantly getting new produce in and out of our grocery stores or our farmers markets, and some people have different preferences. So for a recipe like this, you can feel free to add any vegetables that you want. You could put carrots or Swiss chard or pumpkin. Sweet potatoes are one of my favorites. And in terms of the legumes or beans, you could swap the chickpeas for really any of them: kidney beans, green peas, lentils. I don't know if anybody wants to share if they were making a swap tonight or if they have a favorite fall recipe, but feel free or enter it in the chat. So I do see we have a question, and I don't want to go past it. In order to make a complete protein from 2 partial proteins, do you have to eat equal quantities? You do not. So each one can have different amounts. I'm not completely sure of the specifics, but I know that your body doesn't necessarily need the same amount of every single one. Oh, we got a succotash. I don't think I know what Recipes is. Any other peasant dishes? Those all sound good. Everything bagel spice was a popular one. Peas and rice, popular in Venice. I think all types of beans mixed with rice is a really good combination. Leaves room for creativity. So that was just a really short presentation on proteins. Anyone else has any other questions? I didn't want to get too deep into the science because it can get confusing, but we can get into the cooking. I won't be cooking because limited kitchen space, but I have created instructions and you can feel free to cook at your own pace or later since it's recorded, and feel free to ask me any questions. So here's an intermediate step that you might see during your process. This was when I made it earlier in the month. And I had the ingredients in this PowerPoint, but I know that you guys had that previously. And then there are the different steps.
Let me sound here.
Now I've got to find those crumbs. I put them in a little there.
There we go.
What a crummy situation.
And so we thought maybe I could read out a few of the steps for making the zucchini boats just to get you started. So as you'll see in the picture, I cut each one in half. So that'll be your first step. And you'll want to take out all of the seeds from the inside. You can just use a spoon. It's usually pretty soft. And then you'll want to keep that because you'll fill it later with it. And then you can move on to the stove and heat your olive oil and put in the onions. And then as they get softer, you'll add the garlic, tomatoes, that pulp that you saved, and cook it for about 4 minutes. Mine took maybe 5 or 6 until it got slightly thicker. And then you can add in some of those spices. And while that's happening, in a separate bowl, you can mix that 1/4 cup of cheese, the breadcrumbs, and the parsley, mint, and oregano, or as I said, it's very adaptable, whatever your favorite spices or herbs are. And then you can take what you just made on the stove and you'll add that into the onion and cheese mixture and put a little lemon juice on it. And now most of your work is pretty much done for that. And you can put it into the oven on broil. And if that's not an option, you can just roast it. And you'll want to use the rest of that oil on the top of the zucchini just to make sure it doesn't burn on top. And you can spray a baking sheet, or I used parchment paper and I just put it on top. And then you cooked it for about 3 to 5 minutes. You want to make sure that it's not getting too brown on the top. And once that's done, you'll take it out and you can fill it with the mixture. And then you'll lower the temperature because it's a little high, and put the rest of the breadcrumbs and cheese on it. And you just put it back in the oven and you can go for about 15 minutes. Mine, I had to put the foil onto the top after about 12 minutes just because I didn't want it too brown, but that's also up to your own preference. And for making the couscous, it's also pretty simple. You could have, the couscous will have their own instructions, but you'll make that and let it sit. And then you'll just add in the chickpeas, lemon, the lemon juice, olive oil, the salt. And once you take those zucchini boats out, you can put that on top and eventually get your final product.